Well, speaking of Tanaka, he said, as I'm sure you've heard in Washington, that the velocity probably won't be there this year. What are some of the challenges of him pitching without the velocity he had last year?
Well, let's just wait and see what happens before everyone talks about. I mean, his velocity was 93, 94 the first game. It was there that day. Let's just see what happens. I mean, there's so much talk about it, but until guys get out there, it's speculation, and he's not exactly sure what he's going to have every day he goes out there. I mean, that's just the nature of being a pitcher. You feel you're always going to have your best stuff when you warm up, but some days it's just not quite the same. So for me, I'm just going to watch and see what happens.
Do you envision him staying away from that four-seamer a little bit more, though?
Let's just watch.
Bruce.
Joe, when spring training began, you said, I like this team. How do you feel about this team going into day one?
I do. I like this team. I like the group that we have assembled here. You know, there's a lot of things that have to go right for you to be where you want to be at the end of October. But I feel there's a lot of great pieces here, and I feel there's a lot of guys that are going to have really good years, and it's our job to keep them on the field every day. But I like what we've assembled.
Richard, back right.
Joe, it is opening day, but if you could look at, Joe, it's opening day, but if you could look at the bigger picture, what do you think of the state of baseball 2015 is?
I think it's pretty good. Obviously, there's a lot of great players. There's a lot of parity in baseball today. You're seeing teams from all markets make the playoffs. I think the game is really healthy when I look at it. And it's great because I think it's a wonderful game, and I think that this day brings a lot of hope for a lot of different reasons for people. The hope of your team's going to be in the World Series at the end. If you live in the Northeast and the Midwest, the hope that we're actually going to have warm days again and everything's going to be green. Summer's coming for the kids that, you know, I have three myself that really look forward to those days. So I think the game of baseball is really healthy.
Natalie and Ron.
How crucial is a healthy Michael Pineda for you this year, and how confident are you that this is the year you'll get a full season out of him?
Well, I think it's extremely important if you watch what he did for us last year and how effective he was. And we feel good about where he's at, the way he came into spring training, the way he was ready to compete, the way he threw the baseball. I think pitchers' injuries are probably the hardest ones to predict, you know, when they're going to happen. You just kind of keep your fingers crossed.
Ron.
Is it an unusual position from your standpoint for the Yankees to start a season as not a favorite?
Well, I'd have to say the last couple of years it's probably been that way with some of the things that we've had to deal with. But predictions really don't mean anything unless they come true. You know, I don't know how many of us would have predicted this would have been this nice of a day on opening day, you know, in February. So you have to go out and compete. You have to go and play the games. And that's really the only thing that's going to determine where we land and who was right and who was wrong.
Sweeney.
Joe, is there any psychological difference for you as a manager having two guys to choose from as a closer as opposed to knowing who your closer is? And do you think for the two players involved, not necessarily knowing they're the last line of defense?
Well, I think it's different for me in a sense that you have two options, and depending on where they are in their lineup, you're going to choose one or the other. I think you manage that way probably from the 5th, 6th, and 7th inning a lot of times. You know, a lot of teams have 8th and 9th inning guys, and you just go there. But you manage that way at other times. So from that standpoint, it's not something that I've never done. I've said all along, I think the communication is really important. They know who their guys are in the lineup and who we expect them to get them out. If we're in this part of the lineup, this is who you got. They're well aware of what we're doing. I've explained it to them. They're fine with it. So we're going to go with it, and we'll see how it works.
Andrew and Jack.
Joe, after watching Alex throughout spring training, what do you think you can get from him this season?
Well, I think you're going to get production from him. You know, I don't want to make a prediction on homers and RBIs, but I think you're going to have really good at-bats. And you're going to see him get on base, and you're going to see him hit some home runs. And I think the thing that, as we get into this, that I have to pay close attention is, you know, when I feel I need to give him a day off. That sort of thing, because in spring training, I think he played 3 days in a row, but he didn't play a lot more than that. We're going to have some, obviously, as you know, some tough road trips where we get in late, and I have to, you know, make a call there. There's nothing in spring training that told us he wouldn't be productive, so I expect him to be productive.
Jack.
You mentioned that a team has to have a lot of things go right to get to where it wants to get to. Regarding Tanaka, what are the things that need to go right for him so that he's a big part of that equation?
I don't see him having to do much a lot different than he did last year in a sense. I mean, we're not expecting him to reinvent the wheel or, you know, I'm sure as time goes on, as every player has to in the big leagues, you have to make minor adjustments because people might start to look for things or start to recognize things better. But I think, you know, one of the things that's really important for us is that he makes 30 to 32 starts. That's probably the most important thing. That he's able to do that for us.
Tyler.
Joe, what do you expect the crowd reaction to be today for Alex?
You know, I think it's going to be mixed. You know, as we saw in spring training. You know, it seemed at our home ballpark there were more cheers than anything else. On the road, it's a little bit different. But I think it's going to be mixed.
All the way in the back.
Joe, Alex says he feels like a rookie again. What, if anything, does he have to prove either to you, his teammates, or the fans in the city?
Well, I would hope his focus is not that I have to go out and prove something. I hope his focus would be, let's make sure I'm ready to go every day. People talked about what kind of distraction was it going to be in the clubhouse? What kind of distraction would it be for me? The players enjoy having him around. It has not been a distraction in our clubhouse. Yeah, there was a few more people around the first day to do interviews and that sort of thing, but that all died. His focus has to be ready to play every day. Because in life, whether it's Alex or Derek Jeter or Mariano Rivera or myself, we're never going to please everyone. It's just not going to happen. So if your focus is on trying to please people, you're always going to be disappointed. So focus on doing your job and being ready to play.